And we're back.
Yeah.
Yay! And we are back, and I'm super excited to bring on our next guest. We have actress and published author, the iconic Megan Davis.
I like that. Iconic. That was very RuPaul's Drag Race.
Very that.
Yes.
I loved it.
You love RuPaul's Drag Race? Oh my God. How do you
I
think
love
about
RuPaul's Drag Race. You know, actually, one of my teachers in college, the teacher was in charge of my costume section. I'm trying to remember. I'm like, now I started the story and I'm committed. So I'm trying to remember her drag name, but
what's her government? Maybe we'll know.
What's her well, it was like the very one of the beginning seasons. But Patrick Holt is his name. And I'm trying to remember her name. Anyway, I was her first lesbian kiss because we went to her show when we were in college, and she, he was married. She had never kissed a girl as herself, and so I felt very honored.
Oh, you should.
Wow.
Yes.
I did. I'll look it up while we're on. But
I think I know who you're talking about. I think I got it. It is Tempest DuJour.
Yes, Tempest DuJour.
Yeah. Oh my God, Tempest!
Yeah. And what was so funny is that was when I was first figuring out my sexuality. I had already kind of started hooking up with this girl, and she straight up asked me are you two fucking? And you can't lie to a drag queen. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, they know.
They call it out.
They see right into.
That's why anytime I go to a drag show, I try to sit at the back. I was like, because if they look into my eyes, they're going to tell me something insane. That's completely true.
Yeah.
But then you become that kid in the classroom that's basically the target because it's obvious that you're trying not to.
Exactly. Right. And then you see me slouching and it's you there in the front.
Right, they're going to choose you even more because you got to make the right
because you're hiding.
I mean, literally, I forgot it was a drag show I went to at Haswell Greens at one time, and it was I was going to the bathroom. It was yeah, we know you people getting up, going to the bathroom, going to go do drugs. So go ahead. And I'm oh my God, no, wait. And then you start freaking out because you're that's not what I'm actually doing at this moment. I'm just acting. So it's ridiculous. So yeah, I totally get it. It happens.
Anyway, right. Megan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we derailed it already.
No, you good, girl. You good.
I'll just take my drink.
Everyone drink.
Everyone drink.
So yeah, thank you for joining us today. So Megan, let's take it back. Where did it all start? When did you want to become an actress? Is it something you've known from a young age, or was it something that you kind of discovered recently?
It's when people nowadays are so tell me about you. I'm do you want my star chart or my childhood trauma?
Brayden would love that.
Brayden would love that. He's so sad he's not
Where's
here
Brayden?
Today. Brayden and Ashley, so we have two other co-hosts, and so they're not here today. Ashley is back home with family. And then Brayden had the day off from the podcast, but he was very upset. He was I really wish I could have been there. But
tell Brayden I really don't appreciate today being his day off.
Right. I'm going to let him know. I want 100%.
I'm going to send him the audio right now.
Yeah. Not 100%
okay. Gonna harass him.
Oh, I'm gonna harass him. It's gonna be great.
I'm excited.
Yes.
I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is an interesting place. And I grew up in a very Republican, all in politics family. So you can imagine they were really crossing their fingers for a queer drug addict who got arrested at 17, 18. You know what I mean? I was white to them.
Dreams do come true.
Dreams. My mom was I used to wish for you. And I was wow.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Be careful what you wish for.
Okay. But yeah, so I grew up there. I did always know. I don't want to say that I knew I wanted to be an actress because I just loved everything when I was young. I wrote my a 10 chapter. I was actually looking at it the other day. I mean, it's not awful, I guess, for a 5-year-old, but I wrote a 10 chapter book when I was 5. I used to read 3 or 4 of those Sweet Valley High or Nancy Drew or all those books.
Wow.
And I wrote my first piano duet when I was 4, I think. I mean, I just really loved the arts, and so I would take them all in, and then I had this huge desire to recreate them. I would watch Les Miserables, and then I would dress up in rags and go clean the floor by hand
Right.
and cast on a
Aw.
cloud. Like, it was so dramatic, but like,
Come on, Fantine.
right, right. It was like, but I just really, it was like there was these huge worlds out there that I wanted so badly to be a part of and to understand. So I don't know that it was that I wanted to act as much as I knew that I wanted to be a part of that magic in whatever form that took. If that, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That
No,
makes total
yeah.
sense.
Especially I think for kids like because we're all well, Darrell and I are from Texas. I is from Atlanta.
Yeah. Where
Um,
where you're from?
I'm all over, but the last place I lived before New York was Atlanta.
Atlanta. Oh, I love Atlanta. I was just in Atlanta.
It's
Probably
so-
shooting something because that's all we do down there now.
and
I
you know, so
know.
in the South, growing up in a small town, I think it's I think a reason why I gravitated to the arts was because it was that I wanted to, kind of escape from this tiny little microcosm that we called life down in the South.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think that kind of going into that, it's just like that was the outlet that we had. So, we were kind of talking in the green room before we started, like, when you're growing up, you don't know, like we all think like we're gonna be in theater because that's what we did. We did theater because that was kind of the only outlet. Because even in high schools, they didn't let us know like there's other. You could be writers, you could be filmmakers, you could be all of these different things. And so you start to discover that. And when you grow up, you're like, oh, I could be a producer, I could be a makeup artist, I could be a costume designer,
Right.
I could be whatever it is that you see fit that still has to do with the art. So when you were growing up and kind of discovering that about yourself, Megan, like who was your biggest supporter? Like who was kind of like there to tell you like it's okay for you to go down this path of art and not try to make you go down to you need to be a lawyer or a doctor or something like that.
Get a trade.
Yeah.
I think I didn't have that. If anything, I had that pressure, or I felt more that pressure to be like straight, and in
Yeah.
that like in that avenue of going down the path or whatever.
Yeah.
More than I felt ever the pressure of like you got to be a doctor or a lawyer. I think they had given up. I mean, I was charging like 25 cents to come see my magic show at 4. You know what I mean? Like
Oh wow.
Damn.
forcing
Yeah.
them all
They
to
knew
come
what you
into
were
the
gonna be.
living, sitting them down. Like, so I think that ship had sailed. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Mhm.
and my mom was actually super supportive. She was, she introduced me to opera, and I would fall asleep. She would put on Beethoven Lives Upstairs, which I still
Oh.
think so good for kids because you get to
Yeah.
like learn about all of these composers
Yeah.
and like
Mhm.
their music through these stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would go to all the operas, and I think it was also kind of like what you're talking about with living in a small town.
Hmm.
I think I always had this huge emotional life, and it's something I struggled with. I used to try to make it smaller,
Yeah.
before I kind of learned not to do that. Um, like the first opera I went to with my mom, we sat in the front and they died. Not a big shock because like most operas they die.
Our
Uh,
children,
Right.
yes.
So
Yeah. Sorry to spoil it, but and I couldn't read because I was like 3, I think. And so my mom said she looked over and I was crying, and she was like, "Why are you crying? You can't even read it." And I was like, "Well, you don't need to read to understand the music." And I think
Wow.
it was more that like it was like I had all these emotions and they didn't fit in the world that I lived in.
Mhm.
Wow.
And that was really, we talk about like I think a lot in the queer community, like we talk about that kind of feeling of otherness.
Mhm.
Never actually having full words to describe it, which is like okay. But for me that was a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But obviously way before I even like was like, oh, does everyone want to cuddle with their friends this much?
Yeah. I mean, that's a very interesting point. It kind of like actually dives right into my next question, kind of about discovering your queerness. Like, so kind of walk us down that avenue because we've talked a little bit about the acting and everything, and you kind of alluded to several times like that was a little bit harder. It seems like your parents, gave you a little bit more hell on that. So kind of talk to us about that when you first started kind of discovering that something about you felt different.
Yeah, I mean, like I have a lot of love for my parents, but I'm trying to really be in a place in my life where, and I talked to my mom about it yesterday, like I used to protect the people I loved at
Mhm.
all costs of my own truth. And
Mhm.
I was
Wow.
super willing to abandon myself to protect the people I loved. That's just how I grew up. That was my
But don't
definition
you
of
think
love.
that's how like don't you think that's how women are what's how we're socialized? Like it doesn't matter because, he's uncomfortable, so you need to like you need to hide whatever part of yourself makes that other person uncomfortable. Like that's how we're especially when you grew up with parents who are from the South or like small town America.
Totally. And I think, I think like that's what some people want, and I mean more power to them. Like that, I it is really not my business to
Right.
say, you know, I have this
Mhm.
whole theory that like we all have this soul signature, and that you're really just looking for a person whose soul signature matches up to yours. And my mom is like, I would say like 90% divine feminine, like maybe more. And so she
Mhm.
matches up really well to someone who's like 90% divine masculine, and they have those kind of dynamics that we think of as kind of more typical
Yeah.
gender dynamics. I'm probably like really close to 50-50. So I do really well with someone else who's about 50-50. I don't do
Mhm.
well
Right.
with someone who's very, very, seems to have an abundance of divine feminine or an abundance of divine masculine. Like I tend to ride right in the middle. But
Mhm.
yes, I think, to that point, my mom is, she very much fits into those gender roles, and in a way that she's very happy to do it. She
Mhm.
loves to cook dinner for everybody. She loves to do the dishes. I gotta tell you, like, if I cooked you dinner and you don't get up to do the dishes, like, you're never getting dinner from me again.
I
So
hear that. No, you absolutely right.
That part.
but that's me, and that's what's right for me. But I think, sure, there was definitely, my family's very deeply antiquated in its,
Mhm.
especially in its gender dynamics, hugely. And
Mhm.
so we had this issue the other day, and I got into kind of a disagreement because my brother didn't want to say what he needed, so he said, cool, okay, hung up the phone, then called my mom,
Mm.
and then she called me. And I was like, I'm not 14 anymore. Like,
Right.
Right.
I'm not a child. I
your
don't have to
baby
do
boy
that.
is a man. Like, he needs
Is
to
he
be a
older or
man.
younger?
He's older than me.
Oh,
But
okay.
like, it was, I'm just gonna tell this story because it's funny, but we had this issue with, he has OCD, like pretty badly. Like, and I'm not
Oh,
using it just as an adjective, but um
Mhm.
so I one time, we're like on our way out the door, I couldn't find my hairbrush. I grabbed his brush and just used it, right?
Mm.
right.
It's not like I used his toothbrush. I mean,
Right.
Mhm.
but so then, we get back. My mom all of a sudden comes up the stairs with a hairbrush. And she's like, here, here's a hairbrush. And I'm like, I'm sorry?
Why are you giving me this?
Right.
Mhm.
Like, is today like national, like, did I miss him? And
Mhm.
she's like, well, your brother thought you might need one. And I'm
Oh,
like trying to piece this together because, and you guys look, because you're all from, it sounds like very
yeah.
similar Southern, like, people can't just say what they're trying to say. You got to
Right.
kind of
Right.
fish it out, like put together context clues. And my whole point was, this turned into like a nuclear war over a hairbrush when I
Right.
felt like, just tell me you didn't want me to this is so simple. So
Right.
it is still a thing in my family, to a long-winded answer to your question, that
Mhm.
the women protect the men at all costs,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and they kind of cater to their needs, and that was just never something I was down with. And
Right.
it
Right.
didn't go over super well. So that was
Right.
that, I don't know, I never felt uh like, I
You
love my
said
family deeply, but I just never. Did you guys struggle with that? Because you grew up in the South.
Mhm.
yeah, oh, 100%. I mean, till for me, till this very day, I have moments like that because, a lot of the men in my family are very hyper masculine.
Mhm.
And like I fall, I can have my days, but I've fallen, sitting around and hearing them have discussions about women. For example, I don't sit around and be like, oh, look, like every woman that walks past me, I need to for lack of a better word, sexually harass her. You know, like that's just not
Right.
who I am. I don't even do that with men, and I'm attracted to men.
Mhm.
Like in that way, I don't yell out to a man, and be like, "Oh, let me get that." Like I just don't do that. So like I don't jive with them sometimes. Jive. Where am I from? 1950.
Wow.
Like, anyways, I don't get on with them sometimes because I don't talk like that. I don't behave like that, and they think I'm weird and this alien. They sometimes try to use the way I am based off of the fact that I live in New York now, and I'm like, because I'm from Texas, and
Hmm.
like Adam said, and I'm like, no. I was like that here, but I had to protect myself because
Totally.
I felt like I
Mhm.
couldn't speak up because my life would be in danger. Like they're like, well, you only believe in the politics you do because you live up there, and I'm like, no, no, no. I believed in the same politics. I thought the same way, but I did not think I could say anything because I thought my life could be taken. Which at the time I was growing up, I had just seen Matthew Shepard. I had just,
Right.
seen James Byrd be dry. Like I had seen those things. So like, what was I supposed to say to a bunch of rednecks or homophobes? Like what like I just had to kind of go along with it and let you say what you want to say to fit in. And I, see that all the time. Adam, I don't know how you felt.
No, I didn't have it as extreme, but I definitely experienced my fair share of like, homophobia. I don't think I ever was like concerned for my well-being, thank God,
Mhm.
but you know, it was F-bomb this and queer bait that and whatever.
And most of those guys, I just want to let them know, because I know some of them listen to the podcast. They've been in my DMs with dick pics. So like,
Well,
it's just very interesting from that time period.
Is
The type of
the
they
dick pic
do.
thing, does anyone actually want, like, I just feel like you get them and you're like, I guess
What do we
like,
do with this now?
Cool, bro.
I mean, honestly, at a certain point, you're sharing it with someone that you're attracted to and you're having those moments. That's one thing. When it's unsolicited and they're sending it to you to tell you, like, look at what I got, you're like, okay,
This is not-
I got one too.
this is not exciting. Please don't send me.
Right. It's like I have one
Right,
too. Like, what are you gonna do with that? Like, and also, you're not even nowhere close to me. Like, you are. This is coming from like guys. Like I said, y'all live in Texas. I live in New York, which you know very well. So, what are you sending me a photo? What is that going to do? What does that do for you?
they're exploring
Because it
their
does nothing for me.
sexuality.
Exactly.
No,
Yeah,
I have a huge problem with that. I wrote a poem the other night. It's not even in the book, but like I wrote a poem the other night called like the first stanza is like, I'm really not gay. That's what they always say as they run their fingers down my body. Because
Right. Mm-hmm.
Damn.
I
I
don't
love
know.
that.
So this is an interesting question because like, well, hold on. I want to do the family one first because
Yes.
I did or did you want to how did you feel like did you feel
Oh,
like gendered like you or felt weird in the dynamics of your family or did it
no. I mean, I I was I was good at code switching for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I was good at code switching for my race. I was good at
Mhm.
code switching, because like I have a little bit of masculine energy, but it was also never made a big deal because like my grandmother was like a stay-at-home wife and mother and all this stuff, but she had a lot of masculine energy too. So like nobody clapped me.
Yeah.
Got it.
You know?
Right. Not a soul can clap.
Exactly.
So my family it was yes, like it was a huge issue that I always talked back to everyone just because I was a girl.
Right.
And I definitely got punished for it. Um and I was really the only one who talked back. Like my mom and my brother were smart enough to be like, "Oh, if I just like shut up." But I never got that, so I just would
Right.
always, it was rebel against it. But it was also like, yes, the queerness thing was a huge issue. And I think it felt to me this attitude of like, can you just keep it to yourself? And
Right.
my grandmother at one point was like, I just don't think you should bring that girl here. My mom's
Yeah.
husband's family
Oh.
and we got into this huge thing. We don't even talk now because he was like, you just can't bring another girl to the wedding because we don't want to create a spectacle. It has nothing to do with like the fact that you're gay. And I
Right.
spent
Well,
so much time trying to explain to them how that like couldn't coexist.
Yes.
right.
And they still like they're like you really like you're making it about your queerness. So
That
there
reverse
is
psychology bullshit is
right,
insane to me.
it's all gaslighting behavior, but
Mm-hmm.
like look, and like I'll just, huh?
No, I was giving the questions over to Io. Oh, yeah, okay, cool. I just want to make sure you guys the question. Okay, go ahead.
But look, I mean, look, like I'll just wait. We can call a spade a spade. Like I am from a white family, so gaslighting is, their way of being. And I don't say that like in a rude way. Like I've had to check my own whiteness, so, but I think it is something we're trained to do.
Yeah,
They do it
yeah.
very well. But I wrote this poem called, it is in the book, called Family. And I mean, it's kind of like, I read it to my mom. Just thought she should know, but,
How does she
it's about
feel?
like family. It's just a word, all meaning forever obscured. You're interred, you're dead to me. Honestly, what is it you'd have me do? Say thank you as you gaslight me into believing something that isn't true. As you tell me it's my fault, your wretched bigotry that tears us all apart. But the poem like kind of
Wow.
goes into
Damn.
like, thank you for not accepting me. Thank you for making me believe that deep down there's some internal flaw that prevents you all from loving me. And like the very end, I had to explain to my mom what it even meant, because the very end says, thank you, really, I'll make do as you take your 6 pieces of silver all the way to hell with you. You Judas, may God bless your mediocre soul. Now open wide so you can swallow whatever society crams through the glory hole. And my mom
Damn.
listens to the whole thing and she's like, what's a glory hole?
Oh,
Wow.
yes, of course.
She didn't know, I mean, it's really cute.
Right.
That is cute. So do you think that, just kind of hearing the end of that, do you feel like your relationship with your mom is getting better? Do you feel like she's kind of coming around to understanding and thinking like you? And do you feel like you are helping her kind of come into this free way of thinking?
I don't know that I don't know that I'm helping. Like ultimately we all have to do the work individually.
Right, of course. Of course.
Or else like it doesn't matter who you have around you. And but I think what I'll say for my mom is I have so much respect for her because it's so ingrained in her, the way
Yeah.
of being, and she's not, she's no spring chicken. I mean, she looks really young, but she's,
Yeah.
she's in her 70s, and
Wow.
that's a hard time to change.
Yeah.
Right. It
Mhm.
really is.
And she might not get where I'm coming from at all times, but she tries. She always tries, and she's always willing to have the conversation. And I'm not sure that there's much more I can ask of.
That's amazing though. I think that's amazing though, because Megan, like sometimes when you get to the point where your parents are willing to have the conversation, willing to hear your side, as opposed to kind of police and say like, it's the end of the conversation because I'm the mom or I'm the dad. Like the moment you can get to that where they let you become person, I guess is the
Mhm.
right word to say.
Yeah.
And they see you as a person and equal. I mean, they're still your parent. My mom always reminds me that I'm not your friend, I'm your mom, but we do have a more of a friendship because we cool because there are certain things I can talk to her about. Yeah, we cool. There are certain things I can say to her that I couldn't have said when I was a child. And I'm not gonna be. I'm not gonna
Right.
tell her like, "Mom, guess what boy I got last night?" But she did actually call me out, and she said, "I know which boy you with last night." So that was the whole thing. But we can have those conversations now, as opposed to obviously she doesn't treat me like a child in that respect. So I think that's where your mom is coming around to. It's like, listen, I'll hear you out. I may not agree, I may not understand, but it's better than I feel like maybe when you were a child when it was kind of like, nope, don't talk back, don't have a voice. Like this is what it's gonna be.
So I think it's so amazing and fascinating that you share your work with your family because it seems autobiographical. So it's like to hear you say, "Oh, I read that poem to my mom." I'm like, "You did?"
Yeah.
Well, I don't share with everyone in the family.
Right.
Sure.
My family and I, we have had out and out wars, especially like politically in the last, years.
Yes.
But also just vernacularly, like there's things that I've been lucky enough to have people in my life that teach me things. And then I feel like I don't, there's this thing, it's like once you know something, you can't go back. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like there's things that I don't feel comfortable with. Like I'm sure they feel the same way about me, but I've gotten the same, like, it's because you live in California.
Oh my
It's
God.
really not. Like
Right.
It's literally
It was
not.
always there.
So
it's
would you
because I have
say
eyes and I can see and hear.
right?
Like,
Right.
Common sense to some extent.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not
Um,
more concerned about my tax report than people's rights, but you know.
right, very that. So would you say
Wow.
that the family, because you said you wrote a poem about your mom, would you say that they're a big inspiration for your new book that just came out? Beep, 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 beep. A complete book of poetry called What Breaks Us.
Mhm.
So
You
talk to
know,
us about that. What inspired that? Like how did that come about?
I didn't write that poem specifically wasn't actually about my mom. It was about another person, but it was about,
Mm,
that's what I discovered in writing poetry. It usually starts, the impetus starts from one person in one moment, but it
Mhm.
usually turns into kind of an amalgamation of your feelings about,
For a group
that
of people,
wider
probably.
kind of vibrational issue, if that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
mm,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It does.
uh like I was telling you about the I'm not gay one, like that started out because I was feeling that way about one person, but it really turned into kind of this like, I don't care how you identify, but when you say I'm not gay in that self-reproaching way, like I'm not here to deal with your shame. Like you got to go do that on your own time. I mean, I'm sorry that
Right.
you have any. I've been through it. I understand. Like no one
Mhm.
deserves to have any. But at the same time, like I don't want to be making out with you and kind of get like, but I'm not gay, right?
Right.
Because
Oh
No
my
it's
God.
homo.
I
unpleasant.
honestly, I just had a flashback to a couple of weeks ago of you saying that, and it literally infuriates me to no end with the whole like this whole situation goes down to like you know I'm not gay, right? And I'm like, okay, I guess sure, like whatever you need to. And listen, there's so many other ways to define yourself. I don't know why you want to go right to that if you see how
Right.
uncomfortable that makes you to say gay. Like maybe you're experimenting, maybe you're bi-curious, maybe
Totally.
there's so many ways for you to do it, but you have to go to gay to make your own self uncomfortable after you just did what you did. So those situations like they're very tough, you know.
I had hooked up with this girl the other night,
Yeah.
who is just visiting, so it was just fun anyway. But she at one point she was like, I'm really straight, but I like sleeping with women. Is that a problem? And I'm like, well, at the time I was like,
He
it's
said,
not.
"You'll be gone in a week, girl. Who cares?"
But exactly, I was like, well, this is not a problem because you're visiting. But I
Right.
mean, if you
Hmm.
lived here, I'm just trying to work that out in my mind. Like, I'm straight, but I like to have sex with women. Like, again, I don't care what you want to call yourself, but
Right.
why call yourself anything? Like, I don't know about you, but like, I can't remember the last time that I like was going down on someone and I was like, how do you identify? Like, it's just not.
Right. I was
Exactly.
gonna say that information's not necessary.
And
I mean, I don't.
especially
I
when you
guess.
find them in like most of the time when I'm in a gay bar and I'm not assuming that everyone's first of all I'm not assuming anyone's gender, I'm not assuming anyone's sexuality. If someone wants to tell me that information, like if I call them he, she, or something, and they're like, oh, I go by they or I go by the opposite, then that's you letting me know. So, and there are times with that, like you had kind of said, Megan, I will approach people and be like, how do you identify with just so I know I'm using the right pronouns, just out of respect. But when it comes to something sexually, and we don't go all the way back into my house, and we're making out and we're in the do, and then afterwards you want to hit me with that, well, you know I'm not gay, right? And I'm like,
I didn't ask
I
you
didn't,
that.
I didn't ask.
Right.
Your Uber's here.
Your Uber is downstairs.
Right. Let me
Please
walk
go.
you out. Totally.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's usually like, it's like, you're not saying that for me. So I
Right.
don't need to be here for this conversation. You can have that in the back of the Uber on
Exactly.
the way home.
Right.
That part.
You need to come visit Megan. I need to hang out. You are my
I know.
type of
I
person.
would love to. Wait,
Yes,
do we
we gotta
drink
do that.
again? I'm
Yeah,
I'm
let's
such a-
drink.
so I don't even drink. That's the thing. I'm drinking
Yeah.
Red Bull.
Oh, I love that.
Brad, well,
So
that's
I
why
don't
you can
sober.
stay up and party.
Cranked.
I do, and you know what's great is I do get hangovers because it does dehydrate you. But
Yeah.
I can like
Mhm.
work when I get back or go to the gym, and everyone else is like barely making it to the bed.
Right. You start struggling.
But I got sober when I was 18, so that was actually a big part of the book.
Yes.
So essentially, when you stop drinking, like, mine was not a situation of like, oh, maybe I'm having a few too many. Mine was a situation of like, you're facing 2 to 11 years in prison. Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And so I went to this, this year-long kind of like behavior modification. I had just turned 18. And I really was at the point in my life where I was upset when I would wake up the next morning.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just didn't I didn't understand who I was. I didn't understand why I was so different, why I felt so different, and I didn't understand why drugs and alcohol weren't working anymore, because for a bit there they really helped me to like not feel that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So then when I got sober, people would always, they tell you to journal all the time. Got to journal.
Yeah.
And I didn't like to journal. I don't know why. I don't know if it was that I didn't like seeing my own thoughts. I don't know. But I loved poetry. And when I was a kid, my dad and I actually, we would read poetry like every night. And I would sleep with these like little poetry anthologies under my pillow. And
Oh.
and I always loved music too. And music to me is just poetry,
To music.
yeah. In musical form. Some of my favorite poets are musicians.
Mhm.
So I think I would try to journal, but what would come out instead was poetry. And that was kind of how I would work through my emotions. It just worked better for me in verse, I don't know why. For whatever reason, I
Mhm.
was able to get them out that way. And so I have, always done that since. And then last year I went through a really difficult breakup. I was very in love with this person, and I just started writing like profusely. And, what then became kind of my journey through it, which was I was so heartbroken. Um, and then I, went through like all the things you go through, that feeling of brokenness and
Mhm.
not enoughness. And then, where it kind of moves up the emotional scale to like hate and anger and fear, and then it becomes like sex and attachment addiction, and then finally it kind of starts to move towards love and humanness and spirituality and empowerment and healing. So that was how I ended up structuring the book, was that was my experience. So that's how I structured the poetry in the book. It starts out with that heartbreak, and
Wow.
whether
And
that's
then you
from a
could.
person, I've broken my own heart multiple times, whether that's
Right.
a person, or there's a whole part about kind of, I didn't call it politics. I think I don't remember what that, but like this country has broken my heart, and
Mm.
Mhm. For
I've,
sure.
there's a lot of poems in there that some people have accused me of, well, that doesn't seem like you love your country. And I'm kind of like, well, I think our definitions of love are different then.
I think it's
Because
also like people are always like, if you criticize it, you don't love it. And it's not.
And they're quick to tell us, they're quick to say things like, well, why don't you move away? It's like, ain't nobody going nowhere, including y'all, when y'all say y'all gonna go somewhere with if your person isn't in, or whatever. It's like, why is it? I was watching The View today, and they were talking about,
I watch The View every-
I know, but no, not all the time, because sometimes I gotta work, bitch.
did you watch the Sister Act? Sorry, just did you watch the Sister Act? I was
Absolutely.
so
It was
excited.
so beautiful.
I sobbed. I sobbed just when Whoopi cried at the end, because
Uh-huh.
she loves that movie. Like, out of all of her work that she's ever done, even winning for Ghost and Color Purple, she's like, that movie means so much to her. Like, and to see her cry, she's like, that's one of my favorite films that I've ever done in my entire career. And she's had a big career. Like
Totally.
that because that movie kind of gives hope. Like,
Mhm.
especially in the arts. And somebody posted something really funny to Shirley Ralph. They said, I know I didn't see you on that stage singing Shoulda Coulda Wouldas. Like, I know. And she said, I was. So it was really funny. But I was watching The View, and Whoopi was talking about why are men so concerned about what women are doing to their body? They're like, why is it that men don't understand that Planned Parenthood and all of that, like, it doesn't just have to do with abortion? Why are they focusing on that as opposed to the health issues that come? Some women can't give birth. Some women are, there's just so many other things. And that Alyssa, I think, was talking about. She's like, I have really painful periods. She's like, so I have that. And it's just like, I always let Ashley and I talk about this on the podcast. It's like, there shouldn't be a situation where a
Mhm.
man tells a woman, your period's not that painful. We don't know. We literally don't know. We literally do not have a uterus. Like, I don't
You
understand.
can't.
You cannot have one. So, like, that to me is crazy that that's what the decision makers are. And it's even crazier to me to see the people on the right saying, like, yep, that's how it's going to be. And it breaks what breaks my heart. But I agree with you, Megan, is the women on the right who do that as well, who agree with those men that it's okay. Like, that breaks my heart even more. So I'm just like, I agree with you being heartbroken by this country, because it feels like, when they say they want to go back to the past, it's like, how are you gonna take us back to slavery? Because I'm not going down without a fight. So what's that gonna do? What are we gonna do about that?
Well, those are all such great points. And like, okay, so I wrote this one that actually just won, or it's a finalist for this award in New York. So I'm going out to get it in a few weeks. I was so bummed because I was hoping it
Oh,
would.
really?
You're
Yeah.
coming out to New York?
Wait, you guys are in New
Okay.
York?
Girl,
Yeah.
we're in
Oh,
New York.
yeah.
We live in New York.
And in a few
Oh,
weeks is
great! No,
Pride.
let's go out.
No, we're going to go out. A few weeks is Pride, and it's my birthday.
I know. I was super bummed that it's not Pride weekend. It's the weekend before. I mean, I can't be bummed because like I'm grateful, but at
That's
the same
perfect.
time, I was like so close.
We can go out that Friday night, because that Saturday night I'm going to be in the Hamptons, but then I'll be back. But we'll talk. We'll talk.
Oh,
about
just
it
in the
later.
Hamptons, just casual.
Yeah, girl.
I'm
one
gonna
day.
be in the Hamptons, so I can't. Well, that's fine because on Saturday I'm gonna have lunch at the Kremlin, so I'm gonna be busy too.
Okay, well, all right. Then we got plans. We'll go get it together.
I'm just
though.
kidding. No, but I wrote this poem called "An Open Letter to the Supreme Court Nomination of 2020," and I actually also I just finished this. We shot this film. It's the first film I ever wrote, and it was about a couple that drives from Atlanta actually up to Virginia to get an abortion, and then they don't have the money to stay, so they're trying to drive back, and she ends up hemorrhaging. Anyway,
Damn.
I think in that poem, I kind of explore the concept of the fact that when we vote for president, we're really also voting for someone who is going to make whatever Supreme Court nominations come up in that time period, and that is so huge because it decides our rights. And I remember, leading up to the reversal of Roe v. Wade, it was kind of like leading up to the presidential election of 2016. Like everyone's like, that's not going to happen. They would never actually do that, and they did. And I think, the specific poem that's nominated, it's actually more about the idea of gay marriage and like the fear of not being able to marry the person you love. But I showed it to someone who's very sweet, like as a human, but who also happens to be a white straight male, cis male, and he was like, well, it's just a little depressing. And I was thinking, I was thinking he's never had to worry his entire life, and it's not his fault, because he's a good person, this dude who I'm talking about, but he has never once had to worry that he would not have rights,
right?
Which is, it's a uniquely distinct experience of the white straight cis male. And that same moment I had this thought of, so how are we constantly electing the only group of people who doesn't understand what it's like to have not had rights, or to have rights stripped away, or to have had, a history of someone having to fight for your rights? Like, how is it that we're constantly electing just that one group of people? And no wonder it's kind of callous the way it's treated, because I don't know how you could, and that there's this picture that it always blows me away when I see it, but it's a group of men in the Oval Office when Trump was president signing an abortion bill.
Oh yeah.
That's
and it's
that photo.
It's astounding to me. It's like I look at it, and it's hard for me to understand how people don't see it. Do you know what I mean?
It enrages me, honestly, and I know exactly what photo you're talking about, and it's like the laws that are continuously made, and I feel like the same thing will happen if they if he gets back in and tries to do away with gay marriage. I feel like the same situation.
Talk about that. Like, can he get? I mean, I'm unclear about how you can't vote as a felon, but you can.
You can still be
so
president.
he still could be president. He cannot He
Vote
cannot
for
go, he
himself?
can't vote, and he actually cannot go into any classified areas. So honestly, what really needs to be talked about
What?
to the people who still vote for him, he cannot go to classified areas. He also, it should be noted, he cannot travel to certain places because he is a felon. So he actually, like a lot of the overseas and stuff that he would have to do, he can't go to a lot of places. If those people
Loses
have,
gun access too.
he loses gun access. If you, there was one of the senators, Democratic senator, it slips my mind really, but he talked about it the other day when they were doing thing. He was like, he
On The
cannot.
View?
Yeah, he said you can't. No, it wasn't on the View. No, it wasn't on the View this time. But he was like, he can't.
On The
He
View.
can't. He can't travel. He can't do this. He cannot go into classified areas. All he could do is have the title of president. And he honestly, there are certain decisions he cannot make that have to be like signed off by his vice president and his cabinet before the decision comes. Like he can't do much, but just have the name
But
president.
does it matter? It does. First of all, that doesn't matter to him. He doesn't want to do the work anyway.
He don't. He wants the title.
He just wants the title. And these Republicans are just using him to get their agenda in place. So like none of that matters.
Yeah,
One.
yeah.
Two, if he gets into office, he's gonna find a way to pardon himself. Three, he has an automatic appeal that comes up in I think 2025. And so like, yes, he's a felon right now. That is not to say that this won't be overturned.
Right, but his
Not
sentencing is
oversight.
July, which
Right.
but the most he could have is about 6 months in prison. Like,
And then there's also
Really?
because of his age,
Yeah.
yes. And
Been on
because
there
of
for
his,
years for whatever.
well, the highest you can get for all those 34 counties was 20 years, but there's like some exception for his age and his health.
But
And
that's what
there's,
kills me when people act like there are no systemic issues. Because I'm like even the way that like sentencing is set, like well, the maximum sentence for that, but then like a marijuana charge and like sorry, keep going.
no, you're well.
Absolutely right.
You are right about that.
I want to shift gears.
Oh yeah, because
I would be remiss if we didn't talk about this.
Yeah, no,
We're
I'm
already
really excited
on-
to talk about this
We're
all
already
day. by the way.
on the
What is it?
trial. I want to talk about hot take. The Depp
What is it?
Heard trial. The hot take. Your Fox movie.
Oh. I was like,
You're like,
You're like,
what?
what?
She's
I
like,
know,
this,
I
that
was
was so
like,
long
what's
ago.
the take? Okay.
So
I
yeah,
thought you
how
had
was
one.
that? How was that experience?
You know, it was really interesting because I was actually gonna say, like, which I mean, I'm not taking us back, like it does lead me into it. I'm very fascinated by trying to understand other mindsets. And usually
Yeah.
I honestly learn something. Like I actually was talking to this guy who's super cool who works I go to 7-Eleven at like 3 a.m. every night.
You
like-
are mean. You are
Really?
mean. Yes,
Yes, we stay at a 7-Eleven.
I love it. And
like,
their
cannot go to
cheeseburgers are
bed.
so good. I can't. It's so good.
I can't go to bed without like chips and chocolate and a soda like every night. I have
Yeah.
to, and I do this
Mhm.
You
drive.
people are so lucky. I cannot do that anymore.
Yeah, it's delicious.
I think you could. I do this drive that's like I don't know. It's like the time I listen to like spiritual or like whatever videos, but I always end up like chatting with this this guy that works there, and he brought up a really good point, which is and it doesn't mean that I like I have my own thoughts on it, but he's a felon, and he was saying that he's considering voting for Trump just from the standpoint of opening up the conversation of should felons have all their rights stripped away,
Mm.
which I thought was a really
Ooh.
interesting point. He's from a really difficult part of Los Angeles, and I mean, I know a little bit about him, so like, the idea of like, really, most of us could be felons.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
what separates me from someone else is a matter of privilege and luck, really. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I didn't get pulled over that night that I should have, or like, and I think
Yeah.
it bugs me when I see so many people having a lot of feelings about something where I'm like, I know for a fact that person drink and drove at least 10 times, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so not everybody, I know there are people that really haven't done anything wrong, but I just don't know them personally. Clearly I don't hang out with them.
Yeah. Right. Same.
But so from that kind of same standpoint, like I didn't watch any of the trial.
Okay.
I actually remember I was shooting a different movie, and the person whose house we were shooting in was obsessed with it, and they kept watching it. And I couldn't understand. Like I felt like it looked like a train wreck that I just didn't
Mhm.
want to be sitting there watching.
No, I
Um,
understand. I felt like it was weird voyeurism when I was 9.
Yeah.
it's like voyeurism, like a weird form of voyeurism, right?
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
And I mean, it also was occurring at such suspect timing, right? Because they had like Ghislaine Maxwell's trial and they were overturning Roe v. Wade. And it's like, here you go, guys. Like, watch
Look at this.
Right.
It was super sus to me, but nonetheless, but I hadn't watched any of it, and then the audition kind of basically came up. The producers talked to me about it, and I had happened to be blonde for something else, for a Christmas movie actually that I did.
Mhm.
So they had seen me blonde, and it was weird because when that happened, one of the people involved was like, "You look so much like Amber." Like it just kind of came up naturally, but
Wow.
it was way before the movie was even happening.
Yeah.
And so they gave me the audition. I did the audition, but I was really like fascinated by. Did you guys watch it?
Yes, I was obsessed with it. Yes, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah, I know
absolutely.
you did. You felt like it was. Yeah, I went with you on it.
And,
But
and you look like Amber Heard. I mean, I thought that when you first came out, like you look like Amber Heard. It's crazy because you don't want to like because when somebody's like, I don't want to look like that person, but like you look like Amber Heard, and I just think that that role was so yours. And I was gonna ask you, was it your real hair? Did you do a wig? That's what my question was actually gonna be.
it was my real hair, but they were like, you can't dye it again for because I went blonde and then I went back and then I went blonde again in like 6
Yeah.
months. And they were
Oof.
like, yeah,
Your poor hair.
yeah. I mean, well, look, I told my manager the other day, I was like, get me a role where I can just shave it off. Like,
You're like, I'm done with this.
I'll be all about it. I just like so much of the things that I feel like I become a part of our identity. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe I'm having a midlife crisis, but I just like wanna
Yeah,
get
you
rid
want
of
to
them,
change.
you know?
Do you feel like you so that means like you came in with like no judgment on Amber or Johnny
Well,
when you came in.
right. Sorry. That was the thing. I'm so like, I
No,
just
you're
get really
good.
excited about things. Uh,
Us too.
good. I know. And that's why I'm so excited to hear what you have. But yeah, so I listened to the tapes. That's what I was gonna ask. If you watch the
Mhm.
trial, you know the
Hmm.
tapes that I'm talking about.
Hmm.
The
Mhm.
audio tapes of the they
Hmm.
had
Yeah.
made themselves of their own arguments.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I remember I would just put them on and I would drive around. Like I asked, like I got specific. I was really lucky. I got like full copies of them, like from beginning to
Hmm.
end. And I would just drive around and listen to them. And what I felt that I
Hmm.
recognized in her, look, she and I have some similarities in our past. You know, I had a difficult relationship with my father,
Hmm.
um, who could be great at times and who could be, you know, physical and emotionally abusive at other times. So,
Right.
um, I grew up in Tulsa, which is from what I can discern, not that different from Maine or Texas, which you guys would probably know, you know.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
I'm
yeah.
Yeah.
I identify as I don't really like to identify because but I technically like am I guess bisexual because occasionally I will still date a man, though I will say I think it's going less and less these days. No,
Yeah.
um, but you know, there were a lot of things that I related to when it came to her.
Yeah.
And I felt like when I was listening to those tapes, I felt like what I heard was someone who had a lot of abandonment issues and a lot of issues with feeling like men were trying to control.
Yeah.
And that's something I really related to. I mean, I heard I always say this like I heard so much of myself in her and people are like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Listen, if you don't hear a lot of yourself in other people, I don't know. I kind of feel like you're not being honest, but I
Mhm, mhm.
I felt for her because what I felt like we were looking at this girl who was 25 when they got
Mhm.
together
Yeah.
and
Yes.
this man who's 40 something and he's on the stand still talking about his mother. And the world just fell for it. Like, I mean, I get it. He's cute, he's charismatic. Like, and look, it wasn't a great relationship for either of them. And I'm not trying to make her, I don't think she did herself any favors the way she
Right.
handled herself during that
You're right.
court.
Right.
But what I did feel frustrated by is that, like, as society, is this still where we are? I have very different expectations for a 29-year-old than I do for a 50-year-old.
Yeah.
And
100%.
Yeah.
when if people had taped my arguments when I was in my 20s, like I'm sure everyone would think I was a monster, you know, because I projected a lot of my pain and
Yeah.
issues, especially on those I was having sex with, you
Yeah,
know?
we argue differently. Like when you're younger, you argue differently than when you get older. Because when you get older, you like you make and choose who you're gonna argue. It's like I
Right.
actually don't have the
I
time
don't
for this.
care.
I
I don't have
actually
the
don't
energy.
care. I don't have
Right.
the
Right.
energy. Whatever you say, and it's much easier when you get older to cut people out of your life than when you're younger. Because younger, you want to hold on to everything, hold on to the memories, all that kind of stuff. It's like girl gone. Like I've changed. So I just you just don't have the time. Um,
Right.
and I think the way you portrayed it just really I thought of vulnerability and the way you portrayed her, and I thought it was a beautiful beautiful portrayal, and I think that I hope that Amber got to see it. I would be curious to know, do you know if they got to see it? Do you know if they saw the movie?
I know that Johnny watched it. I don't know about, I think I only know that because he had like a whole party.
Oh
Um,
wow, yeah.
Did he produce
Of course.
no,
Wow.
no, I wouldn't have actually done it if he had produced it because I would have been,
It would have been one-sided.
yeah, a huge part of it for me going into it, I had a lot of conversations with the producers and directors about like, I don't want to do this if you all have made a decision about who you think is right in this, because
Oh yeah.
at the end of the day, like if I'm going to take on a character, especially someone who is a real human being, my my obligation, I feel, to them is that I portray them, like their truth of the situation,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
And if I'm doing that, you know, in an environment where you're already saying that it's a lie, then that's not,
Mhm.
there's no point in even doing it. So,
Exactly.
Agreed.
right.
Because
So,
how can you
and it
find the
doesn't,
truth? How can you find the
right.
truth in the lie?
And for me, like that was, I think my only objective was like, I, if I can just bring out like the fact that she's human and
Mhm.
stop at least like a couple people from, you know, seeing her as essentially a meme now. And
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
we dehumanize people so effectively on social media.
Yeah.
Um, and people say things they would never say to a person face to face.
Absolutely.
So I think that was, I saw that as an opportunity of like, someone's going to play this person. And I feel like I really understand her,
Hmm.
and relate to her. And, you know, I've done a lot of things very similar in arguments. Like I found her saying things that I had said, you know, and whether or not, you know, I was right or wrong, I was doing the best I could at the time with the information I had. I
Right.
wasn't really quite yet committed to growth in the way that I am now. I didn't really know how to go about it yet. So,
Right.
Right.
you know, I guess that was my only hope. So if you know, if anyone felt that, then I would consider it successful. And I did have a lot of people message me after saying like, I don't really like her, but I did feel like, you know, I understand her better now. And so I considered that to be a
Right.
win as a human, you know.
It was a
Yeah.
win. It was a beautiful win and very, very good
Thank
work. But yes, you have to come back.
Yeah.
Listen, because
I
we really
know.
want to have you back to do a whole day of hot topics with us. So please, literally come back. I'm gonna reach out to Jen because I adore you and I can't wait till you come to New York. So before we let
We
you
should
go,
do
can
one
you
while
let
I'm in
everyone?
New York. We can just all be in the same room.
I would
That'd
love
be
that. I would
amazing.
love
Yeah.
that.
Easy peasy.
That would be really good. 'Cause
Yeah.
we'll have
I'm
some
gonna
great
be
fun.
there in it's the 22nd, 21st, 22nd, 23rd.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So, you know, I know you're going to the
Yes,
Hamptons on the
for a
22nd.
day. For
I
a
know you
day.
got the view to watch on the 21st. So
Looking forward
maybe
to
the
it.
Damn.
23rd would work out.
Damn! Not to call out, but you ain't wrong. But listen, tell everyone where they can find you on social media if they want to follow you, to like hear more about you, to see your life and your journey.
To buy your book.
Yes, that's
Oh
it.
yeah, I so my social media is at Meggy Davis, MEGGYDAVIS.
Mhm.
But I did start the book today. I started its like socials. And it's actually really cool. You guys have to check it out and tell me what you think. So what I'm doing is, I wish I had I can show you. I'm I feel like poetry that resonates with us kind of becomes a part of us in a
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
And so I'm letting my friends or the people in my life, or I'll do it on anyone really. Like I'd do it
Yeah.
on a stranger. Pick the verse that they resonate with the most, and then I'm like tattooing it on them. It's not like a
Oh wow.
stick and poke where it's a like forever thing, but um, you know, so essentially it's and then taking a picture of it and then putting it. So that's what I'm doing for like the whole social
Cool.
media.
That's cute. Yeah, I like
it's
that.
so it's like this. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
For
That's
sure.
beautiful.
it's really cool.
So like that one is actually one of my favorite lines from a poem. It says, "You've mistaken my drowning for dancing."
Wow.
Wow.
But so so the social media for that is at What Breaks Us Poetry. And so it has like I'm doing an Instagram and a TikTok. And then I'm doing like shorter lines like that, but longer ones I've been making. It's been really fun. I've been making like these kind of slam poetry videos. You know, I think the one I'm releasing first is like My Generation is Confused. There's a whole part about like I'm just misunderstood, but I'll use Nina Simone's words because I can't invent my own. So it's kind of about being a part of this generation that, you know, seems to reproduce rather than create
Mhm.
in a way.
That is,
Yeah, very that.
I can't wait to sit down more with you and like be in your mind. Like your mind, I think is so incredible. Like I think you're an incredible human being. I'm so glad that we're doing this interview. I'm so glad that Jen set this up. This is amazing.
Me too.
Can't wait to talk to you when you get here. Megan, thank you
know.
so much for joining us today on the podcast. It's been
Thank you,
honestly a
guys.
pleasure. And we will be in touch very soon to have you come back and just spend the whole time with us.
Yeah, thank you guys. And I mean, even if we just get a drink when I'm there, like I'd love to see
We're
you.
going to do
Hang
that.
out.
Amazing.
Karaoke. Yeah.
I would love a karaoke night. I would love that.
Yeah. Okay, great. You're gonna have to take me out because I don't know where the good karaoke is. So
Girl,
Oh, we
K
do.
Town.
We got
I
it.
know. I feel like you guys do.
I got. They call me the streets. I stay in the streets. Me and the streets are great friends. So
Yeah.
you'll probably after we go out, you'll be like, I ain't ever coming hanging out with this fool again. 'Cause he
No.
don't know when to stop.
You say that. I'm like, okay, great. And then as long as I make it to the pizza place I like in Hell's Kitchen by 3, so I can get like, yeah,
The pizza place probably right next to the Mean Fiddler on 47th Street at 8th Avenue.
it's close. It's close. I like the one. It's on 9th Avenue and 52nd Street. They got the really good
Yes.
buffalo chicken pizza with the ranch.
Perfect.
I'm such a
We'll
fan.
stumble right there together.
Okay, great. I'm such a fan. So it's
Yes.
good.
This is
I
gonna
don't
be
know what
good.
they're called. It's like 99-cent pizza or something like that. It's not even
Oh yeah, I think it is that
$1.50 now.
one. Yeah, that one up for sure.
right. The name's
But-
still 99 cents, like the dollar
Right.
store. I'm like, ain't nothing in here
Right.
$1.
Ain't
No,
nothing
no
about
more.
it.
Well,
That's what
Megan, till next time.
Yes, till next time,
Yeah,
Megan.
you guys,
We
it
will
was
see
so
you very-
nice to meet you, and
It
thank
was
you
so
so much.
lovely.
Wonderful to meet you.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for
And
talking.
see
with
you
me.
soon.
Okay.
All right, talk soon. Bye bye.
Bye.